All right, guys. Today we're going to have part two of our prelude to World War II video, video notes, video lecture, if you will. Last class, we talked about kind of the big five totalitarian leaders that would really kind of trigger World War II. Today we're going to talk about the steps that they took that led up to kind of the official start of World War II. All right, and then next week we'll start talking about the actual beginning of World War II. All right, so let's flash back to the beginning of this. In Japan, you've got Hirohito and Tojo, and their first moves in 1931 are going to be to invade Manchuria. They want Manchuria because it's got a ton of resources, which Japan honestly just doesn't have a lot of, mainly natural resources. So when they do this, it's insanely violent. A part of it becomes known as the Rape of Nanking. Over 20,000 women are raped, and most of them are murdered after Japanese troops go into Manchuria. It's an incredibly violent situation. And again, the importance of it is that the United Nations does nothing. They do nothing about this. The U.S. issues a statement saying that they want to remain isolationist. There's a lot of anti-war sentiment still back at home in the United States. In fact, the U.S. passes the Neutrality Acts in 1935, saying that it's illegal to sell weapons to any warring nation, and it's illegal to loan money to any warring nation. Again, we're just trying to stay out of this, similarly to how we tried to stay out of World War One. Okay, so that's kind of our goal again at this point. Soon after, Japan realizes that the UN's not going to do anything, the United States is not going to do anything, so they full-on invade China in 1937. Again, the UN does absolutely nothing, and Japan has realized that it's able to assert its military force to kind of get what it wants. All right. After that, we've got Germany. In 1936, they're going to invade what's called the Rhineland. It's this area that's right next to them that they lost after World War I. This is a violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Remember, the Treaty of Versailles that ends World War I says that Germany's not allowed to have any military kind of conflict. They're not allowed to build up their military. Okay? So they've done that, which violates the Treaty of Versailles, and they have gone ahead and invaded the Rhineland. France and Britain, who are kind of the two closest individuals involved in the Treaty of Versailles, can't agree on how to deal with Germany. They can't agree on what to do with Hitler. So instead of figuring something out, they basically choose to do nothing. The United States, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's got to issue some sort of statement on what Germany has done. The American people want to hear something. So he issues it's not really, he doesn't issue it, it's a speech. It's called his quarantine speech in 1937, in which he says he's going to attempt to contain or quarantine aggressors using economic means, using embargoes, using sanctions, instead of some sort of military combat. Again, this is a U.S. attempt to remain isolationist, to stay out of the problems of Europe, okay? We're still doing our best to avoid military conflict, all right? As a response, 1 year later, in March of 1938, Hitler claims that Germans need more space, that they are being oppressed, that they are being judged, that things are being done unfairly to them in multiple different countries, and that they need more space. So Hitler and Germany decide to annex. Again, annexing is basically just taking a smaller land, a smaller area. They decide to annex Austria, which is interesting, again, given Hitler's background. And again, nothing's really done about this. No one really attempts to stop it. So Hitler's gaining confidence. Japan is gaining confidence. So after that, Hitler decides he wants to start getting back more land that was taken from Germany after World War I. So you get a couple of important things. You get the Sudetenland Pact, all right? The Sudetenland was taken from Germany after World War I and given to Czechoslovakia, okay? Hitler wanted it back. Okay, Hitler believed it was wrongfully taken from the German people. He believed that it was their property. It was their right as a nation to have it. All right? And then you end up with the Munich Pact. Neville Chamberlain, this is going to be a really big moment. This is the Prime Minister of England, is going to meet with Adolf Hitler. Okay, and they are going to have a conversation in which Hitler is basically going to threaten England and say that they will continue invading different areas in Europe unless they're given the Sudetenland, unless England and France agree to give that area back to Adolf Hitler and to Germany. All right, Neville Chamberlain decides to go the route of what's called appeasement, which is giving in to a request, to a demand, in an attempt to avoid a further war, in an attempt to avoid some sort of further conflict. Okay, so the problem with appeasement, though, is that when you give in to smaller and smaller things, usually the aggressor attempts to get more and more. Okay, they attempt to get more land, they attempt to get more property, they attempt to get more out of you until you end up with an inevitable war anyways. All right, that's going to be what ends up occurring. All right, Winston Churchill will say that Neville Chamberlain had to choose between war and basically between their country's respect, and he chose both. All right, he chose losing respect and he chose war in being in appeasing Hitler, in basically giving in to Hitler's demands. So in 1939, Hitler invades Czechoslovakia. All right, so Hitler has now annexed Austria, gotten the Sudetenland back, invaded the Rhineland, and invaded Czechoslovakia. Okay, all of these are violations of the Treaty of Versailles, but again, the United Nations has done nothing to attempt to stop what Adolf Hitler is doing in Germany. All right, one of the weirder moments of all of this prior to the actual beginning of World War II is that Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin are going to sign a non-aggression pact, a non-aggression agreement. It's smart on Hitler's part. He realizes that he cannot have a two-front war. All right, just like World War I, he cannot be fighting on an Eastern Front and a Western Front. He cannot be fighting Western Europe, France, England, etc. if that occurs, and fighting Russia on the Eastern Front at the same time. He just can't do it. So Hitler meets with Joseph Stalin, and this is just kind of odd because Hitler is massively anti-communist. He hates communism. He hates what the Soviet Union stands for. He hates the idea of government run or equality by the people. He doesn't like it, right? And what makes it odd or a little bit even more weird is that Joseph Stalin hates fascism, which is what Hitler is leaning towards, more similar to like Mussolini in Germany. So the two of them signed this non-aggression pact, and they basically agree. I mean, it's very odd. Hitler gets the Polish corridor back, which is near Russia, but it's an entryway, if you will, into the ocean. And they weirdly agree on dividing Poland. Now, when they do this, when they agree to divide Poland, Hitler's next step is going to be to full-on invade Poland. All right, that is going to be the official start of World War II, the invasion of Poland, and we're going to pick up there early next week. All right, probably on Monday. With another video. We'll be doing a Google chat next week as well if you have any questions. Hopefully you've been doing your Google Classroom work, your questions that go along with the PowerPoint. We're still on Prelude to World War II. And hopefully you've been getting those assignments done, and hopefully you get your totalitarian leader or dictator assignment done that is due Saturday night. All right? All right. I'll see everybody later. Keep doing well.